What's happening, people? Hope you're well. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the show. It's great to see you all, to be fair. Do you know what? It's been ages since I'm on my own. It's been ages since I'm on my own. So I thought I'd do a show on my own today. Just going to be a half hour or so, just talking a little bit about Premier League football being back this weekend. And I want to give you my final table because there's been a lot of predictions, a lot of changes. A lot of people have made a lot of changes actually to a table that they thought was going to be quite simple to make. And I've put mine together today, which I think is fairly justifiable from what I've seen so far. It's very difficult, isn't it? Before a ball's kicked, you all look at what you think is going to happen. The transfer window's still open. The transfer window slams shut, and then all you see is football being played, and the wires start to go around. You think, oh my God, didn't expect this. This is messed up. This is not what I thought would happen. So that's completely changed now, as far as I'm concerned. More balls are being kicked, and actually, when you look at it, there's been an opportunity to actually get a look at what the teams are saying about their new signings and about some of the other sort of momentum that has been with and without some of the teams. Big up all of you in here already. Big up all of you that have come over from Never a Foul. Hope you are well. Thank you so much for that also. And let's get into it, shall we? Football is back. Not going to touch much on England because I think we've done that. If you do want to talk much about England, then go and catch up with the last couple of shows that we saw, because, of course, and we're talking all about Southgate, whether he should be in and out, and what they believe this England side is about. And I do think, just quickly, that the future of England is bright. Whether I think the future of England includes Gareth Southgate or not is another question. But Premier League football is back, and I, for one, am looking forward to it. Check out last night's show if you haven't already. We've got myself and Lee Judges talking about all things Arsenal. And as part of the show, we had Henry and Sean talking all things Spurs as well in our North London podcast, which is usually on Lee Judges TV. But was from on our channel last night. Listen, guys, it's a big weekend of football, and it's a weekend of football that everybody, I think, is always looking forward to after the international break, and it's one that I certainly will be looking forward to as well. Make sure you do me a favor. Make sure you smash a like on this video. Make sure you subscribe. We're trying to get up as quickly as we can to our next target, which, of course, is 15K, but it'd be great to get to 13K first of all. Let's take some of your questions anytime. Throw a question in, anything you want to ask. More than happy to go through it. Make sure you put a Q in the chat just before, so I know it's a question. And if you want to throw in a super chat, then of course you can do that as well, and you'll go to the front of the queue. Let's talk football. I wanted to put together my Premier League predictions for the table. Not this weekend. We can go through that another time. For me, I'm looking at what the table is saying, and what I think the table will be saying come May. I've seen enough of football to know that a lot can change, but I've also seen enough to know where I'm at and where I was wrong before a ball was kicked. Now, I want to talk about the title race first. I was going to do this table backwards, but let's talk about the thing that matters, the whole reason that we're about this Premier League, and that's to win it. Manchester City. Let's talk about Manchester City, shall we? The current champions, the treble winners. They've got a lot on this season already. And there's a lot of pressure on them, not just because they've lost a couple of players, but because they're the ones everyone want to beat. And that's why I have so much respect for the champions over the history that have done back-to-backs. And this could be 4 in a row for Man City. When you win the title, it's everybody's aim to beat that team. Every single weekend, it's difficult for that team because everyone wants to have them. And that's why I've had so much respect for Pep Guardiola and Manchester City. And that's why I'm going for them to win the title this season still. I do think Arsenal have an unbelievable chance. Of course they do. But I look last season at what we did and what we managed to fall down upon. And I honestly believe that we haven't quite done enough in the transfer market to show that with injuries we can scrape through. I do think there's a couple of injuries in the Arsenal lineup that could really affect us. Manchester City, let's concentrate on them. They're going to miss Gundogan and Mahrez, because at the back end of the season, those two turned up. When it mattered, Mahrez put the ball in the back of the net. Gundogan led by example. A lot off the field he done as well in terms of wearing the armband, but actually he used to pop up with some goals as well. Can Jeremy Doku and Kovacic replace that? Can Mateus Nunes look to be the difference? Can Julian Alvarez be that guy to replace KDB when he's out? Is Rodri going to be a miss when he's out? I think the answer to that is all yeah. And that's why I think there are some neutral fans that believe Manchester City might not run away with it this season. Now, I've still got them to win the league. They're still my tip. I can't sit there and say to you that I don't have the faith in Pep Guardiola for 4 years running. I don't believe Man City are good enough 4 years running. Yes, I do. 100% I do. I think both those reasons are why I believe they're going to win the league. They've got the best manager in the world. They've got the best striker in the world. They've got some of the best players in positions in the world. KDB, Rodri, probably looking at Gvardiol and Diaz as being two of the best centre-halves in world football. Ederson's right up there with Addison and a couple others of being one of the best in the world. So you go through their team, you think, actually, yeah, they've got the squad depth as well, but actually in their first 11, they've got 5 or 6 world beaters that are by far the best player in their position. And in some cases, debatable to be whether or not they're in the best position. So that's why I'm going for Man City. I think they've proven over the last couple of years that they're the team that can do it right the way through. And I don't even know that I have the confidence that they will drop many points between the months of February and May anymore, because it just doesn't happen. They just go absolutely to another level. And it's always something that peeves them off. And you always see something that happens, whether it be self-doubt, whether it be doubt from other fans, whether it be something happening off the pitch, and they go boom, and they win. And last season, it was the 115 charges. Since then, they lost to Tottenham. That came out, never lost a game. They were phenomenal. Went and won the league. Went and won the treble, in fact. And this season, I just worry at the weekend for Brighton, because I do feel like Manchester City at the moment are asking questions about them. Pep Guardiola is going to go, boom, go and show them why we're going to win the league, or why we're going to go and potentially win another couple of trophies. Rodri's back. Without Rodri, they lost to Newcastle, they lost to Wolves, they lost to Arsenal. With Rodri, they beat Leipzig, and I expect them to beat Brighton with Rodri this weekend as well. So for me, I think Manchester City are going to go on a run now and make everyone realise why they should be the winners of this league. Now, of course, I hope I'm wrong. I'm an Arsenal fan. I want Arsenal to win the league, of course, right? But when I look at it realistically and honestly, I think it's going to be difficult for anybody to beat Man City again. So that's why I've gone for them as my tip. I have, however, gone for Arsenal to finish second, and I'll tell you why. I think other than Manchester City, or along with Man City, I think we're quite clear of a lot of squads within the Premier League. I look at the other squads of Newcastle, Liverpool, Spurs, Manchester United, Chelsea, Villa, Brighton, West Ham. I don't see the other squads as strong as Arsenal. The only one I see close is Liverpool. And the reason I put them behind Arsenal is because I don't see that they have the strength in depth in defensive midfield and centre-half that makes me believe that they're going to be good enough for a title. Now, this could change in January. And I actually think in January, it's going to cause a lot of debate as to who's had a good window. Because if Liverpool go and get a Paulinho and a centre-half, if Arsenal go and get Pedro Neto and Ivan Toney, if Manchester City go and get that replacement for Rodri, we're looking at those 3 clubs and thinking, wow, they've kind of got a bit of everything now. There's not really a weakness in many of the squads anymore. This is really going to be interesting. And I do believe that we'll get to at least the late March and all 3 will still have a chance of winning the title. I do believe that. I still stand by that. I think all 3 will have very good seasons. And I think it will really go down to where they strengthen, how many injuries they'll get, and how many key injuries they get. Because there's a difference between Rodri getting injured and Calvin Phillips getting an injury. There's a difference between Saliba getting injured and Tomiyasu getting injured. And of course, there's a difference between Salah getting injured and Curtis Jones getting injured. So for me, it's about what important players miss long-term games. And that for me is going to be so important. So that's why I've gone for those 3 in a title race, and I've gone for them first, second, and third. I've gone for Man City to win it, Arsenal second, and Liverpool third, just because I feel like at the moment Liverpool can be got at a lot more than Arsenal. Arsenal have looked a lot more defensively solid, and I think in midfield, when they get Partey, Rice, and Ødegaard fit, I think they'll really go for it, and I think we'll see the little bit more of the Arsenal of old. I think everybody's praying to see, well, Arsenal fans certainly are, the 11 that we believe is the best 11, which is Raya, White, Saliba, Gabriel, Zinchenko, Partey, Ødegaard, Rice, and Martinelli, Saka, and Jesus. And that still gives Arsenal a little bit of strength in depth. Not by any means more than we had last year, maybe by a couple of positions. But when everybody's fit, Smith Rowe, Trossard, Tomiyasu, Jorginho, obviously we've spoken a lot about whether Vieira, Havertz, and Eddie are enough. I have my doubts that they are, but they're still there, and they're still there to be used as squad players. Liverpool, likewise, going forward, I think they've got everything they need. I think they've got 5 players there that can all score goals. Where they haven't strengthened is a Thomas Partey, Rodri, Casemiro type figure. And I don't think they have a centre-half that can be relied upon like Van Dijk has been for 30 to 40 games a season. I don't think Van Dijk will be free or fit enough to be utilised in that position for 40 games a season. And I'm not sure that Matip and Gomez are quite the guys that are needed to cover, but I could be wrong. So that's my first three. Then we come into the last two Champions League spots. I'm fairly confident to say that I think those two spots will be Newcastle and Spurs. And the reason I'm going to go with Newcastle and Spurs in that order is because I actually do feel that Newcastle's squad is a lot stronger than people give it credit for. I understand Champions League football. Yes, we can discuss that if you want. Tottenham 1 game a week. But I honestly believe Newcastle are going to be just fine. And I do think Newcastle will strengthen as well in January. The Tonali situation is a little bit up in the air. It looks like he could miss some games. I think they'll strengthen again in January. I don't think that will destroy them. I think they'll just get somebody else in. They've got the money. I don't know who that will be. But I look at Newcastle and I think, yeah, they can score goals. They've got Isak and Wilson. They've got Almiron who scores goals. They've got Harvey Barnes and Gordon that both know where the net is. They've still got players in midfield that I would look at and go, wow, you would walk into quite a lot of teams. Bruno Guimaraes, Joe Linton, even Joe Willock can come back and provide some legs. Obviously, Tonali we've spoken about. Defensively, best defensive record in a while that I've seen. I think Dan Burn and Kieran Trippier have been very good investments, and they've still got the backups now in Livramento and Lewis Hall. They've still got at centre-back Shah and Botman, who I think are a good partnership, and Pope in goal. So for me, I do think Newcastle will get top 4. I really do. Spurs I put 5th because I just think with key injuries, they're going to be in trouble. And I think those key injuries could be Maddison, Bissouma or Son, or maybe a couple. I don't think they've got depletion in terms of strength in depth, but they have got huge drop-offs when you look at the replacements for those 3 players. You look at the replacement for Son, there isn't one. You look at the replacement for Maddison, Lo Celso. You look at the replacement for Bissouma, Højbjerg. You look at Romero or Van de Ven, one of those being out. There's doubts of Romero. Eric Dyer comes back in. And they haven't even really got a goalkeeper that I rate after Vicario. So really that spine, as good as it is, once it gets injured, Tottenham are going to struggle. So they're going to have to pray that they don't get any injuries with 1 game a week. And I think they could get lucky because they've only got 1 game a week. They're out of one of the cups already. So until January, they've basically got 1 game a week now. And that's going to be really, really good in terms of keeping players fit. But what is actually going to be lacking, and something we found when we had 1 game a week, is you can't get momentum. You want to keep playing and you can't. You've still got to wait that 7 days. You've got to wait that 7 days. And it's great to keep your squad refreshed. But the momentum and the lack of it, it really does not actually give you much of a positive when you're flying or when you want to be flying. So for me, let's just give you an example. Let's just say Arsenal go on a run now. We win a game on the Saturday. We're playing again on the Wednesday. We beat them. We play again on the Saturday. We beat them. Then we've only got a couple of days until we play in the cup game on a Tuesday night. Then we're playing on the Saturday and we win that. And then we've only got to wait till the Wednesday. The momentum goes and it keeps going and it keeps going. And that's why it's so positive for teams like Manchester City who get on these runs, or Chelsea of old, or United, or even Arsenal of old. We used to play every few games. And I just think that could go into the downfall of Spurs. But I still do put them in the Champions League. So City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Newcastle and Tottenham are the 3 teams I think will get title race, and the other 2 that I think will get Champions League. And that's the top 5 I'm going for. Then it really is difficult. And the reason it's difficult is because we've got a number of teams at the moment that are proving that not only can they do well in games, but they can beat each other. That Newcastle will go and absolutely annihilate Villa 5-1. And then Villa can smash Brighton 6-1. So for me, it's really difficult to see what team looks better and what team could have the most consistency. But I've gone for Aston Villa in 6th because I've been so impressed with what Unai Emery has done. And I don't think the European Conference League is going to affect them as much as perhaps the Europa League will do to Brighton and West Ham and some of the others that are in that. So that's why I've gone for Villa to be in 6th place. I think Unai Emery has done phenomenal. And I like to see it because the way that our fans treated him was really quite bad, if I'm honest. In terms of the personal abuse that they were throwing at him. He can't speak. No one can understand him. He can't speak the language. No one gets his tactics. Tactically clueless. I understood he needed to go and I wanted him to be sacked because I felt like he needed to prove that he could get us across the line and he wasn't able to do that. But at the same time, if you look at the squad he had at Arsenal, he got us to a Europa League final and a point off of the Champions League with players like, let's be real, Welbeck, Iwobi, players like Monreal, Bellerin, Mustafi, Socrates, Guendouzi, Elneny. Come on, man. Like, let's be real. There was Ramsey and Ozil and Aubameyang that really tried to get us across the line. Lacazette, I suppose, at the time. But other than that, it was a poor squad of players that in the next 2 years come 8th and 8th. That's how poor they were. So let's be real. I think he needs a lot of respect. And that's why I'm putting Villa 6th. In 7th place, I'm going to go with Brighton. I think the job De Zerbi has done is phenomenal. And people are saying, it's the players because Graham Potter did this as well. I didn't see Graham Potter playing this style of football with Brighton. Playing out from the back, there's a structure, there's an understanding. Doesn't really matter who comes in and who's being sold. They've replaced the players. They always seem to, by the way, replace the players that they sold. I'm so impressed by what I've seen from De Zerbi, and I think he deserves a hell of a lot of credit. And I think that Brighton, I think they'll be okay in the Europa League. They haven't had a great start, but I still fancy them. And I also think that they'll be in that 7th place, which will get them the Europa Conference League, which, to be fair to Brighton players, they probably still accept. Try to go in a cup run, try to do as well as they can in Europe, and give a go at winning a trophy next season in the Europa Conference League. I think they take that. I really do. So I think Brighton will be just fine. I'm so impressed by Evan Ferguson. I think Matoma signing a new long-term deal is fantastic for the club. And I do think in every position, they're strong. They're not weak in any position. I don't look at their first 11 and go, yeah, those 4, they ain't good enough. I look at them and I think, yeah, you're a team. You understand a style. And you're good to watch. I like watching Brighton. So that's why I've gone for Villa and Brighton to surprise this season. Who have I gone for next? Okay, 8th, 9th and 10th. Let's look at this seriously. 8th, 9th and 10th. There's 2 clear clubs that I've avoided talking about so far because I've been so disappointed. Now, I don't want to get too cocky because one of them we play at the weekend, and that, of course, is Chelsea. Manchester United are the other ones. I don't think it's been spoken enough about how poor both these sides have been. And I'm not saying this because I'm a gooner, but if this was Arsenal, it would have been a laughingstock, right? It would have been extreme laughingstock. When we come 8th twice, it was absolutely like horrendously bad. No one could believe it. With Manchester United and Chelsea, people are just laughing. They're not really getting as stuck in as I thought they would. It's like, yeah, we thought they'd be rubbish. Really? Manchester United and Chelsea, let me shock you people, have spent more money than Manchester City and Arsenal in the last 4 or 5 years. So why are they so bad? It is purely poor structure at the top. Todd Boehly is reckless, spending £1 billion, and I wouldn't have any of them whatsoever. You look at Caicedo, you look at Sterling, you look at maybe Lavia or Enzo. I'm kind of struggling here. Like, I wouldn't take any of their forward lines ahead of ours anyway. You know, I wouldn't take their defence. I think Reece James is a baller, but he's always injured. I think Ben Chilwell's a great left back, always injured. Their best centre half is a 39-year-old. I don't know, man. I don't know. It seems to me that Todd Boehly is a bit clueless when it comes to football and thinks he can just spend his way to the top. And that's not going to happen. Manchester United. I'm sorry, man. I blame some of the fan base for this, for allowing this to happen. And people will say, what can the fans do? What can the fans do? The fans have been shouting, then they're happy. Shouting, then they're happy. And I still point the same fingers at the Arsenal fans that were doing this with Kroenke. Stop going to games and buying their stuff and then shouting Kroenke out with a scarf around your head. That's what I kept saying. And it's the same for Man United. I want the Glazers out, but I'm going to go to the games. I'm going to buy their beers. I'm going to buy their pies. I'm going to buy their shirts. I'm going to buy their scarves. I'll get the Norwich scarves out. We'll go bust down the stadium. Then we'll buy Anthony and we'll all be okay and we'll be quiet again. Then we'll get really annoyed and then we'll go buy Mount and Højlund and we'll sit on our hands again. I'm sorry, man. Like, you've got to be looking at this and saying, are the fans united against getting the Glazers out, or are they just going to have to sit there and be happy like good little boys and girls? And that's exactly what they are right now. They're sitting there and they're being happy. Oh, just sit on our hands. We can't do anything about it. And now look what's happened. For me, Manchester United and Chelsea are going to have poor seasons. And that's why I've got Chelsea in 9th and Manchester United in 8th. And that could be any way round, to be fair. I think Chelsea might just get their shit together a little bit quicker than Manchester United because I feel like there's more young, hungry players there that will gel under Pochettino quicker than a Man United side that looks like it's got 5 or 6 gaps in it in their first 11 still. I'm sorry, their goalkeeper looks worse than De Gea. They've got no defensive stability in their side. Without Luke Shaw, Rashford looks terrible. In midfield, Casemiro's being left to dead by the other guys, whether it's Mount, Bruno, Ericsson, or all 3 of them. Up top, they're relying on Højlund, who I think looks one of their most exciting players, but he's a young kid with a lot of pressure on his shoulders now. And on the right-hand side, they can't even keep Sancho and Antony happy with the manager, let alone choose which one of them should start. Manchester United are in an absolute mess. And I don't think that it's going to get any better anytime soon for me. So I've put them in a terrible, terrible position. And I think rightly so and justifiably so from what I've seen so far this season. Football can change very quickly. And I don't think Manchester United will change quick enough to make me realise that they're going to be serious about challenging for a Champions League spot this season. I really don't. And then it comes to 10th. Dan Lawless is a massive part of this channel, and big up to Lawless, but I'm not putting them any further than 10th, and I'll tell you why. West Ham don't have a centre forward. West Ham lack firepower. Unless that changes and my mind changes and I start to see Kudus up top, or I start to see Bowen go through the middle with Kudus on the wing, I don't really feel like West Ham have got enough firepower to take teams by the scruff of the neck and go and deliver blows of 3-0, 3-1s, 4-1s, 4-0s. I just don't see West Ham doing that. I think their midfield has actually improved, even though they've got rid of Declan Rice. They've been wise in House and Alvarez, and obviously Paqueta is still there. But I just don't think Danny Ings and Antonio is enough to take West Ham to a European spot. That's just my opinion. But I actually think if West Ham go on a good cup run and get top half, they can't sit there and say it's a shocking season. West Ham have got to be realistic about managing expectation. Just because they've won a European Conference trophy, it doesn't mean now that they are within rights to go and win FA Cups and League Cups and go and compete with the European clubs such as Newcastle, Liverpool, Manchester United, Arsenal, Chelsea, clubs that have won stuff for years and years consistently. I don't see West Ham doing that, but I do see them having an okay season. Last season, they had a terrible season. Let's be real. In the league, they won a trophy. In the league, not good enough. But I do think they'll be fine this time for top half, so I've got them finishing 10th. 11th place, I've put Crystal Palace. And the reason I put Crystal Palace is because they've impressed me so far without some of their players. They've still got Elise to come back. They've still got Eze to come back. They've got França, who's coming into the mix now, who's a young player who looks very proven. Edouard is now injured and has to come back into the mix. They have midfielders that I think can give them domination in terms of Decore with a presence, and also Jeffrey Lerma. And then at the back, something that's kept them very, very difficult to beat is obviously Anderson and Guehi. I think Mitchell as well is a very good left back, but Anderson and Guehi and Sam Johnston is a part of that as well, has really proven that they can be a partnership to keep the ball out of the net. And then when you keep the ball out of the net, Palace have always got a chance. The other thing they've got is Roy Hodgson. And I know that people take the mick and say he's an old man, but actually he knows the Prem well and he knows the Crystal Palace well. And I think it was probably one of the better decisions to make when Vieira looked like he was on a slippery slope. I still feel it was a little harsh because I think he done a really good job and he had some of the worst fixtures. Roy Hodgson come in, steadied the ship, got them winning. To be fair to them, has taken them into this season without some of the players they need and has done very well with them. In 12th place, I've gone for Brentford. I think they're going to miss Ivan Toney. And I think as much as I like Mbeumo and Visser, I do think they're lacking in that area still. I don't think they're as killer. Let's be real, Ivan Toney's a top talent and I hope Arsenal go and get him. But the reason I've gone for Brentford there is because I don't think they're going to have a shocking season. They are starting to concede some sloppy goals and their goalkeeper, for me, needs replacing. I don't think he looks good enough. But I will say this, Thomas Frank, what a job he's done. What a job. I honestly believe he's a fantastic manager. And I think the way he comes across, how he's got the fans on side, the way he gets the team playing, I think Brentford will be just fine. And they'll always be difficult to beat. So Brentford, that's why I put them in 12th. In 13th place, Dave Asprey will be so happy with me because I've gone for Nottingham Forest. I just look at Forest this year and I see something different. I see a lot of individual quality, but I also see a team playing for Steve Cooper. And people laughed at Nottingham Forest only last season for buying 30-odd players. But it looks to me as if they sifted through the ones they want, added the quality that they need, and it looks like they've got a bit more of a team now. Every time that I see Forest play, they give 100%. They fight for the team. They never get battered. It's like a 2-1 victory, a 2-1 loss, a 1-1. I think they've been quite good this season, and I've been quite impressed with some of the individual talents. I think Morgan Gibbs-White's a very good player, but I think the ones that have really proven to me have been some of the new buys. I think Ibrahim Sangare will come into the mix. I think Murillo looks like a hell of a talent. I think Montiel at left back looks decent. And then up top, they've still got Taiwan Awoniyi to come back. I think Forest will do well. I really do. So I've gone for them in 13th position. In 14th position, I've gone for Fulham. Fulham are missing Mitrovic, but let's be real, most teams would. They need goals. They can get goals by committee. I think Willian's come on the scene has actually been quite a good signing for them. They've got other players that can put the ball in the back of the net. But I also think with Fulham that they have got a leaky defence. They have got a midfield that can get dominated. And I think with Paulinho there, if he was to go, which I think he could do in January, I think Fulham could be in trouble. I don't think they'll be in trouble enough to go down, but that's why I put them 14th. And I think Fulham are one of those clubs, they just can't quite get to that sustained point of being a top 8, being a top 9 club. I think they're always floating around there and then they start to drop back down. And Fulham need to get that push. It's difficult. It's very difficult because a lot of the time people pinch your players in that at that club. At that level, people look at your players and go, we'll have that Paulinho, we'll have that Mitrovic. It's very difficult. So I appreciate that it's difficult for those sort of clubs. And for me, it's hard not being supporting one of those that gets their players nicked. I understand, however, how that feels because I've been in a position where Manchester City and Manchester United have nicked Arsenal players. So I do get the frustrations. In 15th place, I've gone for Wolves. Now, they were a side that I tipped that could go down, but I've been so impressed by their style of play and what Gary O'Neill has done. So far, I think they've been very unlucky in some of the games. They've beaten Manchester City. They should have beaten Man United at Old Trafford in the first game of the season. They definitely should have been 2-0 up against Liverpool, but if it wasn't for Cunha missing, it would have been. They need to sort out their finishing, Wolves, because they could actually be all right. And I'm with Kay in the chat. Pedro Neto, I need to get this guy at Arsenal. He's an absolute baller. And it's the only reason that I could see Wolves floating around the relegation zone is because I don't think he's going to be there after January. And I hope that it's Arsenal that get him. Now, if I was Wolves, I'd be doing everything to say, look, stay with us. We'll sell you in the summer, but we need you to try and stay up because you're our only player and our only hope at the moment that shows a little bit of flair and creativity. But their finishing needs to improve, Wolves, for me. But I have gone Wolves in 15th. Bournemouth, 16th. Probably one of the teams at the moment that I think if they stick with their manager and they stick with the style that they're looking at trying to implement, they could be in serious trouble. They've spent a lot of money, Bournemouth, and they should be a lot better than they are. I don't know what's happening. Maybe the manager is just taking a little bit of time to adjust, but it isn't looking good. I see them getting battered by Everton. We comfortably beat them. It wasn't a team I looked at and thought, yeah, you'll be all right. You'll be fine. And, you know, big up Sam Davis. I love Sam on this channel. I think even he's looking at things at the moment thinking, yeah, it's not quite working out. I'm not one of these who looks at Bournemouth fans and says, yeah, be careful what you wish for. Grass ain't always greener. Should have kept Gary O'Neill. I'm not one of those guys because actually Bournemouth tried to go to a different level. They tried to get a different style of play, which was more attractive to watch. And they looked at that manager and thought, this is good. But it hasn't quite worked out. However, I don't see them going down. I do think they'll pick it up. Either the manager and the players will, or they'll get somebody else in. And with the players they've got, I think they should be safe. So that's why I've gone for Bournemouth. In 17th position and safe yet again, I'm going for Everton. Sean Dyche has proven over the years that he can keep teams up. Okay, it eventually comes to an end like it did with Burnley. I don't think that eventually coming to an end is Everton this year. I think when they put Beto and DCO up top together, like I think you will, I think they will get points. And I think when they've got the creativity of Decore, who's had a very good season, I think those two will cause havoc for defences. And I think they're going to nick some games 1-0, 2-1. So I've gone for Everton to stay up, but I don't think it's going to be pretty. I really don't. And that leaves my bottom three. Now, my bottom three are the three that got promoted. My bottom three are Burnley, Luton and Sheffield United, and it's in that order. I think Sheffield United will finish rock bottom. And it doesn't sound too good. I've spoken to Nick on here many times as a Sheffield United fan, and even he says, yeah, I think we're going to go down. We don't look good enough. I don't think they look like they've got any togetherness or fight. I don't think they've got the quality, if I'm honest with you. And I think even if they would have kept hold of Njai and Sander Berger, they would have still been in trouble. Paul Heckenbottom, people are saying give him a chance, keep him. If I was Sheffield United and this happens in the next 3 weeks, I'd probably be, and this might sound laughable, I'd probably be ringing Big Sam and saying, this is our only hope. You've done it before. We ain't going to give you 5 games like Leeds did. We're going to give you most of the season. Just keep us up. And that's what I think Sheffield United might need to do. Unless they've accepted that Paul Heckenbottom's the guy and they're going to go up, down for a few years. But I think I'd be pulling the plug soon and saying, Big Sam, we need somebody like you to come in. So that's what I'd do. As for Luton, the complete opposite. Keep hold of Rob Edwards. I think they're probably the favourites to go down. Everybody was talking about them being the Derby county. They're going to only get 9 points if that is going to be embarrassing. I disagree. I think Luton have showed enough fight that they're going to get some points this season. And I think they're going to be very difficult to beat in certain games. I think for certain playing styles, I think they've proven already to be a little bit difficult. Some of the teams that have played them have only just about got across the line against them. And I think Luton will actually pick up some points. But I do have them finishing 19th. And in 18th, Burnley. I don't know why people are just bigging up Burnley, saying they've had really hard fixtures. We've all had hard fixtures, right? There's 8 games gone, and Burnley have had some difficult fixtures. They've also had some fixtures they could have taken some points off of. Nottingham Forest, Luton, for example, just 2 off the top of my head that I can think of. Let's be real. Vincent Kompany's been disappointing. He was supposed to come into this league and light it up. Like, people were talking about how attractive his style of play is and how Burnley destroyed the Championship. I've been a little bit disappointed. And I don't think they've proven enough to me in terms of the quality or the lack of quality. And I don't think Vincent Kompany's got the experience to know how to keep a team like that up in the Premier League. So that's why I've gone for Burnley. And I love Natalie on this channel. And big up. I love all the guys, Natalie, Dave, and Nick. I don't want to see anyone go down because they're their football clubs that they love. I just got to be really honest. I don't see the 3 that have come up doing enough to stay up. I think that they might be going straight back down to the Championship. So it's going to be interesting to see. Let's put the full table up then, shall we? I've got a screenshot of it, so I'm going to put it up. I know it's quite small for you, but I'll read it out. So I've got Manchester City to win the league, Arsenal to come second, Liverpool third, Newcastle fourth, Tottenham fifth, Aston Villa sixth, Brighton seventh. That's the top 7 for the Conference League. I think Manchester United and Chelsea are going to have shockers, and I've put them in 8th and 9th, and West Ham scraping into the top half due to lack of firepower. I've got Crystal Palace 11th, Brentford 12th, Nottingham Forest 13th, Fulham 14th, Wolves 15th, Bournemouth 16th, Everton 17th, and then the 3 going down, Burnley, Luton and Sheffield United, the ones that have come up. Listen, I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. Trust me, I've been wrong plenty of times. But I just don't see at the moment how anything else is justified not being in and around where we are. I don't think that's going to be miles off. The only positions I could be miles off with is if United and Chelsea do pick up their form and start to leapfrog the likes of Tottenham, Villa or Brighton or Newcastle. That's where I could be completely wrong. So I'm just going to see. I'm just going to see where we're at right now. That's where I'm at. I can only go by what I've seen in 8 games. So it's going to be interesting, isn't it? Listen, guys. Been an absolute pleasure as always. I'm going to go for a prediction this weekend of Arsenal to beat Chelsea 2-0. A lot of people have asked me why I think that. I think defensively we've been really good away from home. And I think Chelsea at the moment, although I've picked up some form, won't quite have enough for Arsenal in my opinion. Things can change. Sending offs can happen. Injuries can happen. Saliba, Saka, Trossard, all believed as well as Partey to be fit. But what does that mean? They're going to start? Are they going to be part of the squad? Will one of them miss out with late fitness checks? We don't know yet. But for me, that's why I'm going for 2-0. I'm not going to do all the other predictions, but I will say that I think Arsenal will win. Listen, it's going to be interesting. A lot of people in the chat, let us know what you think. Let me know comments of your top 7 and your relegated 3 in the comment section below, and I'll definitely check them out. A lot of people not happy in the chat. United fan, 8th. Come on, Dan. Listen, mate. I honestly believe you'd be in trouble. Could be wrong. Been wrong before. Pick it up and we'll see what happens. But I'm honestly not impressed by what I've seen by Manchester United at all. So let's see. Guys, absolute pleasure. Do us a favor. Make sure you smash a like. You subscribe to the channel. And make sure you join if you want to be a member. You can do that now as well. Until then, we'll see you next time. Take it easy, people.